Hey dog, it's time for you to go home. It's not safe out here. You've got to go back to Vault 101. Where the heck is he going? I mean, literally, where the heck is he going? We know where he says he's going, and I'm pretty sure he'll get there, but is he really gonna walk all the way back? Other characters in Fallout 3 do this too. They say they're gonna meet you somewhere.
We're gonna head back home now.
And then they just run off. And that's interesting because there are a lot of deadly creatures in the wasteland of Fallout 3, and at least in the case of Dogmeat, these characters can die. So is Dogmeat just invincible when he's walking home? Does he even interact with these robots and these monsters and these raiders? Also, there's a gigantic river in between us and where he's going that he's gonna have to cross. Can he swim? I've never seen him swim. So that's what we're doing today. We're going to be following Dogmeat as well as a variety of other NPCs from the places they are to the places they say they're going to go, so we can figure out the real details of how they make these journeys, or if they make them at all. For this video, I spent roughly 20 hours sitting in front of my television following NPCs around in a variety of different video games. While I was doing that, there was a 0% chance I would have eaten a decent meal if it wasn't for the sponsor of this video, Factor.
Can you spare any more water?
No, I've given this guy like 30 bottles of purified water. You don't need any more water. I've given you plenty. You know what you probably need? You probably need food. Could I interest you in 20% off? What does that say? 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders using promo code AnyAustin50. No, that wouldn't be helpful to you. Beggars can't be choosers. Factor is a meal delivery service that sends you high quality meals, all of which can be prepared and ready to eat roughly as easily as making a frozen pizza. Honestly, it's probably even easier than making a frozen pizza if you have a microwave, but I don't have a microwave because I'm a weirdo, so I have to put them in the oven, which is fine. The convenient thing for me about Factor is that I'm very lazy, and while I obviously respect and believe that cooking your own food is a sacred thing, I just don't want to most of the time. I just want to throw something in the oven or in the microwave and just have food ready to eat. And the fact that Factor gives you good food is just a plus. And Factor is super flexible with letting you pause or restart your subscription as you need to. So if there is a week that you do want to do your own meal prep, you can do that, no problem. And then when you have another week where you have a lot going on and you're not sure if you're going to have time to cook for yourself, it'll be there, right where you left it, no fuss. Deliver me food, chef in a factory somewhere. I assume that's how it works. I don't know. Head to factor75.com or click the link below and use the code AnyAustin50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders. That's code AnyAustin50, no spaces, at factor75.com to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month of orders. Now, as soon as I told Dogmeat to walk all the way back to Vault 101, he immediately walked in the opposite direction that he was supposed to, which does not bode well. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's a smart dog, and I'm sure he'll obviously figure it out, but in the Oh. Dogmeat has passed away. Yeah, it turns out that Dogmeat does not lose his taste for blood, even when you're not accompanying him directly. And as long as you're in relatively close proximity, he will just run head first into any enemies that he can smell. And he will usually get himself killed pretty quickly, which obviously is sad, but is sort of a prison of his own making because he usually does pick these fights himself. But we do need him alive in order to do this exercise, so I'm going to have to play guard duty going forward. And let me tell you, if you want to do this, you better have a good gun. The further Dogmeat walked, the weirder his directional choices got. It's almost like every turn he made was the opposite of the turn I would have expected him to go based on where we're trying to get to. But I almost wondered if there was something about the fact that we had to cross the Potomac River that was getting in the way. Because again, at this point, I don't know that Dogmeat can swim, so maybe he's looking for a spot where he can cross the river on some sort of bridge, or maybe just a spot where the river is dried up. But no. He can swim, so I don't know what he was doing. I don't know why we walked so far, dog. Why did you walk so far? And then as soon as he got out of the river, he just kind of started wandering again. And you'll notice this pretty much any time you follow an NPC around in a Bethesda game. There is a lot of sort of wandering one direction and then immediately turning around and double backing the other direction. There's a lot of like stopping and just looking at nothing for a little while. They just make a lot of odd choices in terms of how they get from point A to point B. Now, my first thought is that behaviors like this are just glitches or mistakes or lazy development, but I almost got to wondering, if I was to follow people around in real life, would they do similar things? So I went to my local grocery store and I followed a couple of different people around very gently. You know, it wasn't weird. It was people watching. It was regular people watching. And as I observed these people, I would make a mental note anytime I noticed them doing something that if it were in a game, I would consider it kind of like a glitch. And let me tell you, We do this stuff all the time. There was a 5-minute chunk that I was looking to go buy some sugar-free Red Bull, and within that 5-minute chunk, I did it 3 times. I would walk one way and then just kind of zone out and then realize I passed the aisle and then turn back around and then go back the other way. I saw a lady just like bump into a wall with her cart. And I'm not making fun of these people. I'm saying this is like a normal human thing that you do that you probably don't notice you do. I definitely do it all the time. And I'm a genius. You know, we tend to overestimate ourselves in that way. So much like a Bethesda game, you might say that we were kind of lazily developed. Food for thought. Now, I'm not saying Bethesda intentionally programmed these things to run badly so that we would it would seem more human. I'm just saying that as humans, we have flaws, and a lot of times those flaws accidentally make their ways into the works of art that we have. And I think that's good. I think that's a positive thing. If every NPC just like did the right thing and was efficient all the time, it'd be like living in a crazy Elon Musk Spock land. No, thanks. Now that said, there are some behaviors from NPCs that I could not justify with this roundabout logic I'm using. For example, another NPC that I really wanted to follow around was this child. This is a child that you rescue from slavery in Paradise Falls. And after you do that, the child says, I'm gonna go to Little Lamplight.
We're gonna head back home now.
And then the child runs off into the night. But what's interesting about children in Fallout is that they cannot be harmed. I think they're the only NPC that has God-given protection strictly based on their demographic, but unlike Dogmeat, he also doesn't have any way of fighting back. So when this invincible child runs into a rad scorpion, what's he gonna do? Usually what they do is they hide. Eventually they'll get bored of hiding and then they'll run. Between those two actions, usually the enemy will either go away from them or they will then run away from the enemy and everything's fine. But there was one instance where the kid ran away from a Mirelurk King, which is like a really buff fish guy, probably a foot taller than me, and I'm 7 foot. I'm 5'11". But the kid, he was trapped in a corner by one of these Mirelurk Kings, and eventually, I guess he decided that he wasn't going to be able to outrun him, and he wasn't going to be able to hide from him forever. He had to get to Little Lamplight eventually. So he just fought him. A little 4-foot-tall kid just went full-on open fists with this 8-foot-tall gargantuan monster. So they just kind of boxed for a little while, and then eventually the kid ran away, and that was that. Pretty funny. Anyway, back to the dog. I think the funniest thing about escorting Dogmeat around is that anytime he brutally kills somebody, no matter how much damage he took, no matter how far away he had to wander from the path he was on, the moment that enemy is dead, he just locks all the way back in and starts walking. Same speed, straight back to Vault 101, allegedly. And this is even more amusing if you consider that it sort of implies that this is what happens every time you send Dogmeat back to the vault. You just normally don't see it. See you later, Dogmeat. Hope you don't commit any 1st or 2nd or 3rd degree crimes on your way to the vault. You know, it's kind of like a Schrodinger's dog situation, right? Dogmeat is neither alive nor dead. He's neither guilty nor innocent of murder unless you're looking at him. Which also means that the game doesn't always function correctly unless you're not looking directly at it. The illusion of these characters getting from one place to another is broken if you actually want to look at these characters getting from one place to another. You need to look away in order for the universe to hold together, which may actually be true of real life as well. I don't think too hard about that. I just said it. I'm not a scientist. Could be true, though. Now, as I think we all assumed, after about 90 minutes, Dogmeat finally made a defensible navigational decision, and he turned back east and walked all the way back to Vault 101. It took about another 2 hours, but it was pretty straightforward from there on out. And just like if you fast travel to the vault, he walks up the little path and then perches up there waiting for you to return. So that's great. And if you extrapolate this to the whole game, it's actually pretty impressive. I know that it's very old at this point, and I'm sure a lot of you don't think it's as interesting as I do, but I love this idea that if an NPC in a Bethesda game says, I'm gonna go here, and you decide you want to say, prove it, they actually will. It's a little funky because they might get murdered, but the threads of the world are there. It's almost like a big, giant, slightly crappy version of Majora's Mask. You know, perhaps the best Zelda game ever made back on the N64, where they had a 3-day cycle, and every single NPC in this village had a point in space to go to at every single moment, so you could follow people throughout their entire routine across these 3 days. That was obviously a much more elegant way to do it, but it was also way smaller in scale. So it's not unique to Bethesda games, right? Even other modern games, like Tears of the Kingdom has this same thing going on. You can find NPCs wandering along the paths, and they will go all the way from one place to another place. There are obviously a few wrinkles, right? Nintendo makes their games with a little bit more polish than Bethesda maybe does. Like, for example, characters in Tears of the Kingdom, when it starts raining, as I'm sure we've all seen, they will run and sort of try to find shelter, and they'll look for whatever the closest thing is along their path that will offer kind of an overhang to hide under. So in this case, this lady just found like a rock that was sloped just enough that it would protect her from the rain. And she waited for the rain to get done and went back on her way. It's also cool because in Tears of the Kingdom, when you talk to these NPCs, they're not people who are normally going to give you quests. There's not that kind of interaction. They really are background characters, but you could talk to them and they might say something like, oh, you should go here and look at these things. It's so cool. And then they'll walk, and it turns out they are walking to the place that they recommended you go see. For example, this lady walked all the way to Kakariko Village, walked all the way up some steps and went to an observation platform so she could view these old giant ruins, which she had told me about all the way back at the place she started. You know, it's very similar to what Bethesda did 2 decades ago in Fallout 3, but with just that characteristic Nintendo restraint and polish. So that almost brings us to the end of exploring how these NPCs behave in Fallout 3. But there is one other class of NPCs that was actually the spark that got me interested in doing this video, doing this experiment, and that is these guys. This is somebody who has been captured by super mutants, and you as the player character can go to them and let them go. You can free them because you are an angel. And anytime you free them, they'll always say something like, oh, thank you so much.
I can't believe it, I'm alive!
You know, here's a reward. I've got to get out of here. But they never say where they're going. And I've always been really curious about, like, what does this NPC's life look like after my role in their life is done? Do they go somewhere specific? Do they have a home? Or maybe in this case, because they don't have a destination, they do just disappear like maybe we would have expected the other people to do. The problem is they run really fucking fast. They run faster than the player character, so it's really hard to keep up with them. And because you don't know where their destination is, you can't even like make good decisions about how to cut them off. So in the past, it's always been too annoying to follow them, but of course, I couldn't not do it for this video. So here's what happens. Ready? Set? Go. All right, here we go. Where are we going? Okay, down over here, okay. Train station, got it. Going inside here. Oh, wait. Where'd he go? Hello? Hello? Oh my god, he turned into a ghoul. Okay, so this guy just made a beeline for the nearest enterable door. Then he went into it, and then he disappeared forever. Obviously, there's a fun little narrative you can build that he did turn into a ghoul, but I'm pretty sure that, like, as far as the game mechanics are concerned, that man is gone. Which kind of goes to what I was saying, that maybe because they don't have a destination, they do just disappear. But let's do it one more time with a different one of these captive people and just see if that still happens. Hello, ma'am. Would you like to be freed today? Okay, off you go. Oh, geez. Man, she's really running. Now that's a lady that knows how to escape captivity. She ran for a little ways and then immediately started swimming in the Potomac River, but then she stayed in the Potomac River, and she stayed in the Potomac River, and then she tried to drown herself in the Potomac River, and it was really hard to see her, so I kept almost losing track of her. It felt like playing one of those ball cupping games. Not ball cup, you know what I'm saying, the games with the balls and the cups. Doesn't matter. And then again, after about 10 minutes, she got out and started sprinting out into the wasteland again. Now, when you follow these NPCs around, you really do have to be careful about watching where they're going, because if you take your eyes off of them, they will just dart behind a rock, and then you won't know which way they went, and then you're done. So you have to follow them, and as you follow them, they're gradually going to get farther and farther away from you because they're faster than you. So you have to make guesses about what way you think they're going to go, and then try to like do a little Pythagorean theorem and cut them off in the way that they turn. Thankfully, every once in a while, they do like just stop to catch their breath, which often gives you a chance to keep up with them. So it's not horrible, but it is annoying. And what's interesting about this lady is we passed a lot of potential doors that she could have gone in if that's what she was going to do. Subway station doors, houses, buildings. We even got pretty close to the city of Megaton at one point, and I almost got excited because I thought, oh, maybe this is like a little in-universe explanation for all of those settlers that end up in Megaton. They're people who were released and then they run there and now they live there. But she didn't want to live in Megaton. She took one look at that hunk of junk and said, no thanks, I'd rather take my chances out in the wasteland. And let me tell you, we ran all through the night. She would get scared and she would hide. When we got attacked, I would defend us and I would save her life. The more we ran, the more attached to her I got. And then at one point she stopped to catch her breath and she said this.
This is hopeless.
Which kind of weirdly felt kind of sad to me because, you know, she's an NPC in a video game. She didn't choose this situation, which kind of weirdly felt kind of sad to me.
This is hopeless.
The sun was just starting to creep up over the horizon and we had been running all night long when we got attacked again. Of course, she didn't have any way to defend herself, so it was up to me to play bodyguard. And I'm sad to report that I failed. She got totally turned into green goo by a laser gun. Every little quirk of her personality, all of that pessimism she had, was just totally apathetically liquefied by a computer program with a gun. Oh well. The consequence of this is that we will never really know where she was going. And maybe she didn't really know where she was going. It almost felt like she was running just for the sake of running, trying to stay alive as long as she could, even if she was never destined to settle down in one place. I've met people like that in real life. I'm sure you have too. The cold reality of the game programming is probably something that's knowable. I'm sure somebody in the comments could even tell me, based on their knowledge of the creation engine, why this NPC behaved how they did. And obviously I would love to know that. I'd like to learn more about that stuff. But for my part, the more interesting question to me is, I wonder if God struggles to comprehend our behavior in the same way that we struggle to comprehend hers. I'm Annie Austin. Thanks for watching.